Hi everyone, this is Justin Cramer with ProShip. We're going to give it a few minutes here, no more than 5 minutes, to let all of our attendees start to accumulate. So within the next 5 minutes, we will go ahead and start. While we're waiting, for those of you who are interested in having your questions answered, now is a great time to formulate your questions and throw them in the question box, so we can go ahead and hand those to myself or our panelists as the opportunity arises. Again, for those of you who are just joining, we're going to start this in less than 3 minutes. We're giving an opportunity for the rest of our audience to join us. You can take this time if you want to go ahead and formulate any questions, throw them in the question option such that we can get to them hopefully during this process. All right, hopefully we've got the majority of people. If not, they can catch up. So one of the first things we're going to be looking at is we want to make sure that you understand some of the housekeeping. For those of you who can hear me right now, obviously you've realized that we don't have a call-in number. Please utilize your speakers for audio. If you have coworkers or friends that are watching this, please feel free to text them, let them know. Most importantly though, this is being recorded. We understand that everybody has busy schedules. If you are a registrant of this, you will have an on-demand copy of this presentation post-webinar. To reiterate again, if we would like to go ahead and if you have any questions, we strongly encourage you, throw them in the Q&A box. We'll go ahead and work them in, or we have a separate section for any questions that won't fit in during our panel discussion here. And of course, there's a lot of information associated with this. If you look on the in the download section, you'll see that we actually have 3 handouts available for you to be able to download, pull, and either follow along with us on some of this or use at your leisure. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and move through the agenda where we're going to talk about we're going to go through introductions, both of the people and the companies they're associated with. We'll go through a panel discussion. Each of the panelists will have an opportunity to provide final advice, and then any questions we didn't get to, we'll try to do at the very end. So I'm Justin Cramer, co-founder of ProShip. I'll be the moderator for today. ProShip is a multi-carrier shipping software that both Gilt and Hibbett Sports uses. Bill Carson, let me go ahead and start with you. If you could talk through to us some of your roles and responsibilities at Groupe, as well as a little bit about Groupe itself, that would be great.
Great, thanks, Justin. Yeah, I'm Vice President of Technology with responsibility for all the back office systems. Fulfillment operations is a major focus, which is why I'm on this presentation here today. Been with the Groupe Gilt Group for over 8 years now. When I started, it was Rue La La, and it was actually a division of a smaller division of another parent company, which it outgrew. And then about 1.5 years ago, coming on 2 years, we acquired the Gilt operation, and that's been really successful as well. So if you're not familiar, the two core brands, as I mentioned, Rue La La and Gilt, both of these are what we call flash marketing sites, and they are 100% online. We found our niche in the luxury apparel business, and it's been quite a roller coaster. Our goal is to surprise and delight our members by constantly providing fresh and new product offerings at incredible prices. So we enjoy the collaboration with our customers. It's a very tight relationship we have. Typically, product is in smaller quantities and limited sizes, etc., limited colors. So there's this excitement aside from kind of regular standard retail. That the customers will constantly come back because they get this excitement of treasure hunting, and they're able to score items if it matches what they're looking for. So we have a tremendous amount of interaction with our customers on almost a daily basis. The company mantra is to be the most engaging online off-price style destination, connecting world-class brands to the next generation shopper. Mandatory I read that, otherwise my marketing team would be very upset with me. So that gives you a good flavor. I would love for you to check out the sites if you have an opportunity.
Excellent, excellent. Who doesn't like a good retail bargain or good retail therapy, getting a deal no one else can? Bill Quinn, let me move over to you. If you could describe yourself, your role, and what Hibbett Sports does for those who for some reason doesn't have one near them, that would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Bill Quinn. I'm the Senior Vice President of Digital Commerce. So I own digital for the company, and I also own marketing for the company. From a digital perspective, I own our core e-commerce business and experience, as well as omni-channel, customer service, and all of the development, front-end development on our website, our apps, as well as our order management system. From a marketing perspective, I have the marketing departments, that includes digital marketing, our CRM programs, as well as traditional marketings, things like direct mail, brand management, etc. So as far as Hibbett Sports, probably quite a few of you probably never heard of us or vaguely heard of us. We've been in business for 75 years. That normally surprises people because most people haven't heard of us. We're over $1 billion in annual revenue. We have almost 1,100 stores. The reason why most people haven't heard of us is we're in a lot of small markets. So we're in Manhattan, but not Manhattan, New York, Manhattan, Kansas. That'd be a great example of the markets that we serve. So mostly underserved markets, as we call them, rural. And we tend to focus not on discounting, but actually on premium merchandise, which also surprises people. They equate small towns with cheap, and that is not our business model. So we're in small towns, but we offer premium brands. So we sell primarily athletic-inspired footwear and apparel. Footwear is about 50% of our business, apparel is 30%, and the rest of it is accessories, and then a little bit of sporting goods. But most people read Hibbett Sports and they think we sell like tennis rackets and those sorts of things. Sporting goods is a very, very small percentage of our business. As far as, I came to this company 4 years ago, and a lot of my time has been spent building our e-commerce business. We actually didn't have one. We were one of the last retailers in the US to have e-commerce. And we launched that in 2017, and since then we've been very, very successful, and we've grown very rapidly online.
Excellent, excellent. So now that we've introduced the panelists and their companies, let's take one more round, starting with Bill Carson again here. Let's talk about some of the general shipping motivators or challenges or things of that nature that you're continuously looking to solve, or that you've solved with some of the technologies that you picked over the last few years.
Sure. We utilize what we call there's three different, if you want to call them, shipping models. Two of them are pretty standard. We have a distribution center down in Kentucky, and that's all the company-owned product that we bring in. Again, in our off-price, there's a lot of opportunistic buys, so we take advantage of that, and we bring it into our facility to be prepared for sale. And then there's drop ship. It's only about 18 to 20% of our business, but it does work well with complementary to a lot of the other big brand. Usually that's some smaller brands. We feel good about giving them an opportunity on a big stage to drive their sales and get their brand out there. So the drop shippers love us. We have a really great relationship with them. And then the third one, ironically, the third model, if you will, ironically is called quick ship. And I say it's ironic because it's actually the slowest shipping method of the three. And that works. So if you guys are familiar with the flash sale, then you kind of know that what we do is we have a boutique that opens at a specific time per day, and it usually lasts for a day or two. And typically within that first hour, a lot of the real great bargains are gone. So there's this draw at a particular time, 11 a.m. and noon every day for the two different brands. So why I bring that up is the way we utilize that, because certain items are only on sale for 2 days. So this quick ship model allows us to kind of sign up and allocate a certain number of inventory quantity for a particular product, and then we wait the 2 days, and when the boutique or the sale is over, for example, say we provisioned about 3,000 and we only sold 2,000. We then we adjust the PO to 2,000 and get that to the vendor, and then the vendor will ship 2,000 to our DC, and we prepare it and get those 2,000 out. So the obvious benefit is no residual, no excess inventory. Our CFO loves that piece of it. The obvious downside is that extra time in adjusting the PO and getting the product into our DC certainly delays those shipments somewhat significantly. So that's something we're always trying to figure out, because we want the best of both worlds in that particular shipping model. We're still trying to figure out how to still expedite shipping and still get the benefit of limited residual product in our warehouse.
I think a key takeaway there is even with what the industry considers to be a pure e-tail solution, you have multiple shipping models to meet the various needs of your customers. That's really helpful. Bill Quinn, let's go ahead and find out what the shipping models and challenges Hibbett Sports has.
Yeah, so it's interesting path that we've been on, very different than when I started off in e-commerce a long time ago. But we had a blank sheet of paper, and we sat down and said, okay, well, how do we want to ship? And the model that made the most sense to us with 1,100 stores was to use our stores as the primary fulfillment vehicles. So that's what we do today. Majority of our fulfillment is actually done via one of our stores. And the advantage of that is we're able to tap into all the inventory out there, as well as we're a lot closer to the customer. So that model has worked well for us. Also begs the question of, okay, well, what do you need a DC for? And we found that for certain items, especially very quick selling items, a distribution center is the best way to handle that business. So we do a lot with super hot launch shoes, things like Jordans, Adidas Yeezys. So those things we put into our distribution center because they're in very hot demand, and we sell them very, very quickly. And that's primarily what we're using a DC for. The day-to-day is mostly handled by the stores. We also have a range of omni-channel fulfillment vehicles as well. So we do buy online, pickup in store. We do reserve in store. We do buy online, ship to store. and we're also doing same-day delivery as well. But we kind of figured out what made the most sense for us and then ran with it.
Excellent, excellent. There was a follow-up question that's already come in. Thank you all for sending us questions. Bill Quinn, it's fair to say that you said the majority of your shipping, so 51% of your shipping comes out of stores most of the time, and obviously that's going to fluctuate, especially like you said, if you get one of those higher demand items, you're going to shift more back to your DC. Would it be fair to say that you're always still doing more than 50% of your shipping from store, or can you get more specific than that? If not, we respect that.
Yeah, no, we absolutely do a lot more than that.
Okay.
We have been putting more inventory into our distribution centers, and we are using a drop ship network, but those aren't big portions of our business. We still rely heavily on our store base.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so let's get moving into the first question then. And Bill Quinn, I think I'm going to start with you on this one. Tell us a bit about why your company believes shipping is important and an area to invest. Obviously, as you said, in 2017 for e-commerce, you had to start from scratch. So it's a whole new investment strategy.
Yeah. I mean, that shipping is core to the entire e-commerce experience. So you have to get it right. And it's also core to that omni-channel experience too. So it is critical, and we do spend quite a bit of time on it. The biggest reasons are shipping will impact your top line and your bottom line, so both of them. Bottom line is obviously the most obvious one, just in terms of trying to keep those costs down, because shipping is a huge line item in the P&L, and it can get very expensive depending on how you do it and really erode profits. So we pay very close attention to that. And then on the top line, it's all about customer satisfaction. And I actually get a report every morning that I read through, and we survey everyone that we do delivery to, and they tell us how it went at the end. So I read those each morning, and customers remember their last experience with you, which is really that box or bag showing up on their doorstep, and that's kind of how they're going to judge you. What shape did it show up? How quickly did it show up, etc. So that's how it impacts your top line. And a big part of that obviously is speed, but there are other factors as well. And you need to make sure that you're shipping fast, and that's easier said than done. But yeah, in general, it's big on the top line, big on the bottom line. It's one of the key levers to grow or shrink your business depending on how you're handling it.
Excellent, excellent. And Bill Carson, let me go ahead and throw that question over for Gilt.
Sure, it's kind of interesting because it's important to, in different ways depending on who you talk to within the business, right? So customer service and the marketing teams will tell you that it's critical to get the product delivered ASAP. I mean, everyone is aware that you need to get the product shipped ASAP, but to counterbalance that, you've got sort of finance and merchandising because they have to take the shipping costs, as part of their margin and all the business aspect of it, and they will try to find that sweet spot between shipping as fast as possible, meeting customer expectations, and then managing the transportation costs. So that's probably everywhere, but an ongoing yin and yang, which is healthy. But most importantly, we are exclusively online. So shipping is our lifeblood to the customer. So just in general, everyone appreciates and understands that. And just adding some color, if they didn't, 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, there was Rue La La was the primary company, and it was funny because all of technology at 11 a.m. they would have their sale, and everyone, it was like Black Friday every day at 11 a.m. And the sites would get crushed. So everybody in technology was just focused on the front end and making sure the sales were captured. So when I came on board, there was nobody taking care of the back office and fulfillment side of things. So I started focusing on that, built a great team, and we decided to bring it in house. And the right decision, just poor execution, and it was a WMS migration, big bang migration that went badly. And if everybody, and especially the executives that are still there 7, 8 years later, lived through that scenario, they fully appreciate, how important having a reliable and steady shipping system and shipping business operation is, because they live through that, and it's in their forefront of their mind. So no problem keeping everybody focused and getting investment dollars in the shipping side of things.
Yeah, it's always difficult when some part of your enterprise software stack doesn't go in the way you expect it to. So, all right, let's move on to our second question, which is all about the challenges, and it's really about setting customer expectation. I'm just gonna set the table here a little bit, because most of us on the call are pretty aware that 5, especially 10 years ago, customers had very different expectations when they ordered online. Taking a week or more to deliver packages was sometimes considered acceptable. When you said you'll get it there in 2 days, because customers assumed that you meant 2 business days, meaning that if they ordered on a Friday, they may not get it until the following Wednesday. So because of all the change, how are, and Bill Carson, I'm going to start with you. How is Gilt setting that expectation, and what challenges are you facing in that process with your customers?
Yeah, that's funny. Just segueing off of what you mentioned about going back in time, and I'm going to do the same thing again, just because it is interesting to see the evolution. And there is a component of when again, this flash marketing is like a treasure hunt. So it's still that way now, but back then, as I mentioned, a lot of the really the typical size or the most beneficial colors got sold out really quickly. So the customer expectation was, if they got the shoes in their size and their color, they were just so excited that honestly, if it took another 3 or 5 days to get there, it wasn't the end of the world. So that was back then. That's certainly not the case now, but there is still a little bit of that. So we do get a little bit of a pass on if we're not shipping today, right? Like others. So we do take advantage of that piece of it, but we do have, like I said, the shipping, the different shipping types, and we're adjusting where, how can we ship from different areas to look at different areas and different types. And obviously, the faster we get it out of the warehouse, so that's the piece that we can control. The SLA of the order hitting the warehouse and getting it out. That's a piece we control, and we've made great strides there in improvements.
Do you during a flash sale, do you guys have a guaranteed ship date, or is it just a 2 to 3 day shipping expectation?
Yeah, we do set those expectations. So the stuff that's in the warehouse is 48 hour. It'll get out the door, and quite frankly, it's less than that. It's probably within a day. But then we do set the expectation. If it is the infamous quick ship model where we don't have the product in our DC yet, we will adjust, and we will communicate that to the members so that they are aware of it ahead of time.
Excellent. Let me move the question over to Hibbett. Bill Quinn, if you could talk about how you guys are controlling that customer expectation.
Yeah, it's difficult. So it's a bit like pachinko. If anyone's ever seen a pachinko game where the ball drops at the top and it kind of goes all different directions till it gets to the bottom. But an order can either go to our distribution centers, one of our 1,100 stores, or one of our 40 dropship partners. So and all of those different routes have different fulfillment times. So to be able to promise a precise date to a customer gets very difficult. We give a range. We kind of went through our statistics using ProShip data actually, and figured out, okay, what within 90% accuracy, what can we do from a window? So the big thing is how do you promise something to a customer when you've got so many different ways to fulfill it and deliver on it, and in some cases it's out of your hands. Some cases it is in your hands, but then you have to hand it off. So that's a challenge. And then really what happens after the product ships too is another expectation. That customer really wants to be kept in the loop. So you promise them something, and then they want to hear frequently, from you on how well you're doing and where you're at in the process. So you've got to make sure that your communication vehicles are good as well, and we do that via email, and we also do it via text. Best communication you can up front, and then after the item is shipped, or even before the item is shipped while you're working on it, more communication. And I'll tell you, the expectations are high. You know, it's a lot of people are getting it there in 2 days, and that's the bar. And now some people are getting it there within hours, depending on where you live. So that bar has been set very, very high. But like I said before, I read the surveys, and I'll tell you, if we're a day late, customers are not happy. I'll go from a score of 5 down to a score of 1. So it is critical that you promise correctly and that you deliver on it and that you communicate.
Yeah, so it sounds like those satisfaction scores are an all or nothing kind of thing for you.
Yeah, you get very rarely a 3, which is interesting. It's either people are going to love it or hate it. You get the ones, or a lot of 1s and 5s coming through, and then you get those occasional 2s, 3s, and 4s.
I see. Let's move on to the third question here. Talking about technologies, obviously fulfillment is a huge piece here. And Bill Quinn, you already talked about the fact that it's like one of those machines where the ball can go anywhere and you don't know where it's going to end up when you first drop it. What kind of things are you guys doing to actually make that shorter, make it more predictable, so you can better meet your customer expectations?
Yeah, I mean, we've stitched together, I'll say it's kind of 3 things. So, you know, having a robust order management system that knows where everything is and can route that order to the closest place to the customer. You know, so that is critical that you have that. And also that's allowed us to have a very robust offering of product, because we're able to route all the different inventory pools to an order management system, so it sees all of that. And then the second thing is, you know, how good are you at the actual fulfillment itself? You know, do you have a really good warehouse management system, which we do in both of our distribution centers, and then we actually have 2 ship from store softwares that we use. So we use that as well, and there's a myriad of settings within, in particular, the store fulfillment system on what store gets what and why. But a lot of that is based on proximity, but also some of it's based on how busy that store is at the time as well. So we may not send it to the store that's closest to you, but we'll send it to a store that's closer, that's less busy. So we take that into consideration as well. And then lastly, just talking about notifications. So keep the customer in the loop. We send a lot of emails for every different scenario that can happen to you. We're going to let you know whether it's a good scenario or a bad scenario. We're going to give you the news. And then we're also going to text you if we happen to have your text number. We've actually gathered a lot of text numbers as part of our checkout process. We do ask you not only for email but also for your text number. And that's a very easy way, an instantaneous way to communicate with customers. Much higher open rate with text, obviously, and a much higher, actually, adoption rate than what we were initially expecting. So if anyone on this call is not doing text and just email, I'd highly recommend you build that into your programs as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to call back out. You mentioned your OMS, and I have to say, what I've noticed in the last 5 years is if you are a retailer attempting to ship from store and you do not have an OMS in the process, your fulfillment process is significantly more difficult. But let's move over. Let's move back to Gilt, and let's ask, what technology implementations have you guys put into place to make this easier? We know that the quick ship has some challenges, but I'm sure you've got some other things that have helped everything else go significantly faster.
Yeah, so just segueing off of what Bill mentioned and Justin touched on with the OMS, we're in the middle of it right now. It's like open heart surgery, not a simple, painless process, but as Justin mentioned, it is critical to advance and elevate your operations and your processes. So that's a big investment. That's a big project. A lot of different teams. So that's a big one there. I don't want to get too deep into it. Bill hit on the value there pretty well. So just touching on a couple of other things, which are two completely separate but interesting. So again, back a little bit further. Sort of a backwards way of addressing the shipping, if you will, and customer expectations was we find that you give free shipping, and you know what, they'll take a couple day delay in the shipping arrival. So again, not as unique now as when it was rolled out years ago, but we had a process when that we built into the systems that if somebody purchased one particular day for the next 30 days, they would get free shipping. So we saw a dramatic increase in the volume of new orders in those 30 days. No surprise. So that was actually a nice boost. And then recently we've got programs similar to Amazon Prime. Pay one fee and you get a bunch of perks, and that includes free shipping for the year. So that's actually works out very well for the two brands also. And then on the true deep technology side, we've recently had success implementing a new auto boxer, and a big deal, a big investment. And again, to my theme of maybe it doesn't get it there faster via the carrier, but if I get it out of the warehouse a day ahead of time, obviously it'll get to the customer a day ahead of time. So that is working extremely well. The machine not only helps with the efficiencies in the operation, but it also right sizes the boxes to the products, and it's amazing to watch with the lasers and how it cuts the boxes to the exact size. The boxer we have does multiple, because we're very proud of our brand, and we wanted to make sure we still had the brand logos and everything on the boxes and bags, and the box machine was able to handle the two different types of branding. And lastly, on that piece, it saves on the DIM, right? By right sizing the boxes, you don't have to worry about a packer picking the right size box. So we saw a significant reduction in DIM transportation costs. So last nice little plug for my friends at ProShip. We did plug this boxer into our ProShip system, and it was a complex integration, but it really showed the flexibility of the system itself, and the ProShip team was fantastic to work with.
So it sounds like you hit a bunch of things by adding a piece of technology, a physical piece of technology with that auto boxer, not only creating the boxes, wrapping the box around your goods, labeling the box, but then again, as part of your customer experience, having the branded box probably goes a long way for your customer experience, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. You can't imagine any, we had to put, we had a recent situation where we wanted to put a barcode on the boxes to add to our capability for tracking and that kind of thing. And it took it took weeks of creative discussions to get approval for where the barcode, how big the barcode is. So I'm kind of joking and laughing about it, but it's pride, right? It's pride in the brand. It's pride in the presentation. So we all see that as a very positive thing.
And I'm assuming with those branded boxes, when your customers get their boxes, they know right away what's coming from you guys, so they can open that Black Friday-like win as soon as they see it.
Oh yeah, the boxes stand out, no doubt.
Awesome. So, Carson, let's go ahead and let's look at the rest of your tech stack. So we talked a little about ProShip. We talked about the auto boxer that you guys. Is there any other things that you guys are putting in your technology stack that your peers in the industry would want to know that you guys are using to maintain operational costs or decrease those operational costs?
Yeah, I think we typically try to enhance whatever technology we presently have in play. So, you know, we look there first, and then we'll certainly look around, and we're partners where we have some sister brands, so we bounce a lot of different ideas and thoughts if they're doing something ahead of us. So we look at both, right? We're going to look at how do I enhance what's going on in the facility and what tools I already have at my disposal, and then we'll also look to implement new things. So one example of just enhancing the processes internally was consolidation. So Rue and Gilt, as I mentioned a number of times already, you know, we've got a great member base. They come back very frequently to just see what might be there that they don't need to buy but may want to. I think our annual average spend is $700-800 a year. So that's what I'm told by my marketing team is very high. So we're proud of that. So, you know, using that knowledge, that data, and that opportunity, we made adjustments to order consolidation. So, you know, anybody out there knows if you want to get a quick win, if you could get any kind of consolidation and you're cutting your packages, you're cutting your transportation costs significantly, pretty quickly. Obviously, easier said than done. So we've made a bunch of adjustments around order consolidation, which does help. And that was both from what we can control in the DC, and then also where it gets a little trickier is with the drop shippers, right? We try to help them with consolidation because they're on our carrier bill. So we look at it from numerous fronts on that side of things.
That's a lot of software stack that has to get involved there. ERP, maybe WMS, OMS, and then of course your EDI feeds out to your third party. Thank you for that. That's a lot of information about your tech stack and some of the challenges that I'm assuming some of our audience members are also seeing. Bill Quinn, let me throw it over to you as well and have you talk about some of the challenges, some of the things that you guys have done within the Hibbett tech stack in order to decrease that time, decrease your operational costs. Of course, all these things that as you mentioned earlier, go to that bottom line.
Yeah, so definitely the OMS and how we route orders, that saves a lot of money. The other thing is, with route and having multiple carriers and doing rate shopping, that produces a lot of savings as well. I'd highly recommend if you're not doing rate shopping today, you should do it. If you don't have multiple carriers today, you should do it. I think the third thing I would mention, which has nothing to do with technology, but is by far the most powerful way to control your costs, is look at what you're actually selling. So I'll use Walmart as an example, or any of the pet food suppliers that I order from. Ship a $40 pound of dog food. You're not going to make any money because it's going to be expensive to do that, especially in 2-day shipping. So that's what at least I would think with Chewy, how that would work. Walmart, I ordered a bike, and that thing was an adult bike, and it wasn't very expensive. It was an $88 bike. I don't know how they were able to get it to me in 2 or 3 days and still make any money on it. So take a look at what you're selling. And sometimes there's bad sales out there, and there's also kind of the Pareto principle, which is probably 20% of the items that you're selling are driving 80% of your profit loss. So take a look at some of those items that might be expensive to ship, whether they're heavy, whether they're oversized. Take a look at whether you really need to sell those things or not, because you can free up a lot of money and you can reinvest that money in other things. So part of this is a technology answer, but part of this is just, is the business making the right decisions?
Yeah, part of it is that operational answer. Okay, well, right before we move into the final advice segment, let me let the audience know now is a great opportunity if you want to ask any questions after each of the bills get their opportunity to say their piece. We're going to go ahead and open the floor for questions. So let me go ahead and move on over there. Bill Quinn, since I ended with you on the last question, let's start with you on this one. Any final advice to our audience that might be interested in, the ins and outs of improving their their distribution to their customers, that customer expectation, that customer experience?
Yeah, I think my whole advice is flexibility. So typically, historically, at least in my experience with fulfillment, it's been very rigid, and there's been a lot of thoughts around this is the right way to do it in order to save costs. You pick a path and then you double down on that path and then you build around it and et cetera. And that increases a lot of rigidity, in the business and builds a lot of inflexibility in the business. And yes, you can squeeze out the final penny, maybe, but then you get hurt when it comes time to try to do things differently. And I'll use COVID-19 as the perfect example of that. If you were heavily dependent on DCs, you found yourself backed up completely, versus if you had DCs and stores as fulfillment, you could kind of switch your volumes around. So to me, flexibility is a lot more important, especially just meeting ongoing customer demands and what the customer wants. Flexibility is key for that. So that simple, but that's my advice.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I know that we're seeing a lot of our customers, depending upon where their warehouse origins are and where they're most heavily shipping to, they basically still have upper level quotas as if it were November and December. By being able to spread that around, whether that's through stores, like you guys are capable of, or like both of you are leveraging manufacturers and 3PLs, that's been a great way to go ahead and get around a lot of those things.
Or even having multiple carriers, as you guys allow. You can hook up to a variety of carriers. If one gets overwhelmed, you can load more to another.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot about that. The fact that if you're getting quotas from your East Coast origins to your East Coast destinations, there are regional carriers there. Same thing on the West Coast. Both the Midwest and Texas have their own unique regional carriers that can be added to help alleviate that. I will say it's something we are doing very quickly for many customers who weren't as heavily multi-carrier as they could have been. So, Bill Carson, let me go ahead and give you the last opportunity to give the advice here before we move into the open question section.
Great. Yeah, certainly take the opportunity to double down on what Bill said with flexibility. It's critical, as he already alluded to, and I have actually a great example. And that's talk about the proverbial rock in a hard place. We had a situation when we're FedEx, so we switched from UPS to FedEx and pretty much predominantly FedEx. So we just hardwired our WMS into the FedEx, and we using their API. And then we started having problems with the rate updates. And basically, FedEx said, "Well, you've got to upgrade the API for the FedEx API to get the rates to work consistently." And then where the problem came in was the WMS said, "You can't upgrade the FedEx API because we haven't validated and approved it yet." So neither was budging, and I could have upgraded and I could have got it to work, but it wouldn't have been supported by my vendor. So that if that's not a crystal clear smack in the head to tell you if you're planning on hardwiring anything, don't do it. Spend the money on a shipping system which builds that flexibility and reliability in the middle of that, and then just taking it to the next step. We have marketplace partners, and we had to recently set up annoying shipping programs like Amazon Prime, which we were able to plug into the shipping system. And then, as I already alluded to, we've had good success integrating baggers and boxers with it. So again, flexibility, reliability, a good partner behind you when you want to do maybe some unorthodox things is 100% essential. And then it's kind of funny what Bill mentioned, which I didn't even think of until he said it. With the multi-carrier, we're actually in the process here of setting up UPS in our shipping system with the just predominantly for if there is some kind of a problem on the FedEx side, which we haven't had. FedEx been a great partner to us, but we're we're going to get our systems ready if we would want to pursue that avenue. So.
Bill Carson, I can't help but take away from that the whole IT concept, the software concept of separation of concerns. I think that that you hit it perfectly. Your WMS should not do the same things as your OMS. Your ERP obviously isn't a WMS, and likewise, where many companies feel that either their WMS or their OMS can do their shipping components, it often locks you in to say that you have to either move your WMS product more frequently in order to have the versions always quote unquote certified with that carrier, whereas you may not want to do that because of the customizations you have in that component. By separating those concerns and having OMS is doing the inventory piece and the sourcing piece, your WMS is doing the pick, pack, and validation pieces, and having your shipping software that have the ability to update like tax software does, really does help give you flexibility in the long run. Excellent, excellent. All right, so I'm going to move on to some final questions. We've got just a couple of them here, and guys, I'm just going to kind of throw these out to both of you as they come along here. So inventory source selection. Do either of you have any advice to our listeners here about that inventory source selection? And Bill Quinn, I know you were talking a little bit about your OMS was trying to look at multiple factors. Is there any deeper you can go to answer this this question?
Sure. I could try to take a stab at it. We've set ours up because we have unique, or I wouldn't call them unique, but we do have different business needs. But the way that we do it is we have an order of how we send items. So an item will first go to our distribution center, and it'll go to our stores. And then when it gets to our stores, we have several layers upon that, or tiers. And that's all just based on the type of item, how much inventory is in each store. We tier stores by the amount of inventory that they have. We also have proximity logic. So there's a variety of ways to answer that. I think the best thing is find some systems that are flexible, figure out what your business rules are, and then build them into those systems. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but let the business rules drive the process versus the technology. You should be able to, if you're choosing really good partners, they should be able to adapt to whatever you're requiring. But we've definitely architected the order flow, the handoff, and we've got multiple, I wouldn't call them brains, but multiple systems that actually are smart enough to determine where an item goes once it gets handed an order as well. So it's not all done in actually one place too. Sometimes there's multiple handoffs. So I'm sorry I can't be more specific than that, but it really would depend on those exact business needs that you would have.
I think the most important thing is you've uncovered, or you've at least exposed the amount of complexity that's truly involved with something like that source selection, and how it varies dramatically based upon the origins you have, the products you have, and where those products actually exist.
Yeah.
But Carson, I know that you guys.
One other thing to mention is during the item setup process, we actually attribute the item in terms of where it can go and where it can't go. So that's another thing to be thinking of as well when you're thinking this through, is can you build that into your front end digital business, is attributing the item.
Yeah, making sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Bill Carson, let me throw it over to you, because I know you talked about just the 3 different modes, which are very different, and of course with the consolidation effort, a lot of this inventory source selection is very critical to your business as well. Is there any more color or anything that you can add to this to the process of inventory source selection?
Yeah, it probably doesn't apply to most of the standard retailers out there, and I'll tell you why. Just because again, we're opportunistic buys, so there's not a lot of reorders. I've only got one DC, and even the different ship methods, whether it's quick ship or not, we don't. If somebody orders 3 things and 2 of them are in our warehouse and the other one and the third one is a quick ship product, we will ship out those two orders, the 2 products that are in the warehouse, to at least get partial order to the customer as quickly as possible, and then wait for that third piece to come in. So I would say probably, where I am, and then the drop shippers, they have unique product that's not in the DC. So actually, that piece of it at Gilt Group is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. But I would say in my prior experience, I was CTO at electronics distribution, and we had 5 DCs, and we had a bunch of different redundant SKUs. And you can't do it without an industrial strength OMS. I mean, you could do it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it well. So again, if anybody's looking at it, that's one of the primary reasons why you'd be looking at an OMS system. And then I would also say, if you are then looking at the OMS system, look at best practices within that OMS system, because that was my role, was to have my team not change the best practices in an OMS system because they thought they knew better. So that's a piece of advice there, which I hope everyone considers.
Yeah, again, you're talking about that separation of concerns with the enterprise software stack. I couldn't agree more. Bill Quinn, we got a follow-up question for ship from store. And I'm just going to read it straight out and interpret it the way you can, I guess I should say. When fulfilling web orders by shipping from stores in addition to DC, any tips on how to balance store inventory? Are you greatly increasing transfers between DCs and stores to do so? Or are you simply maintaining higher levels of inventory in the stores?
Yeah, so it is pushing more inventory out to the stores. And there's a lot of benefits to doing that. So if you keep an item in a DC, the only way you can sell it is through online. If you take that same item and you put it in a store, you could sell it online, but you could also sell it to someone who walks through the front door. So you are better off pushing the inventory out, which is contrary to a lot of, I'm sure, expert opinions. But the person that satisfies that local customer the best, as well as can fulfill an e-commerce order the fastest, which local inventory accomplishes, you're going to win the game. So you think about Amazon and how many distribution centers they're building. There's a reason why they didn't stop at 4 or 5. So yes, push more inventory out to the stores is the answer.
And you don't find any concerns, and this is my question, so you can just blow it off if you want to. But you don't find any concerns where you have items abandoned. Let's say you end up with a coat in Florida or something like that. You're not finding too many concerns about that?
Well, are you talking about a return in particular? Someone returns a coat?
I'm more considering, something, you're pushing more inventory out to your stores. Doesn't that increase the risk that one of the stores is not going to be able to sell as many of those items, and you may have to discount some of those items to move them locally?
Yeah, you still have to be careful. So you're not completely just opening the floodgates. Number one. Number two, the coat in Florida is an interesting example because someone in Boston could go online, or someone in Pennsylvania could go online, and they need that coat, and we'll ship it from the Florida store. So we tend to balance things out as long as you're careful with that. But we do err on the side of having a lot more inventory in the stores than we do in a distribution center.
Excellent, excellent. All right, last question here. And I think this is the last time, we don't have any more time for other questions. So Bill Carson, I'm going to start with you on this one. Carrier service selection. Do you have any advice to e-tailers and retailers out there about the carrier services, between express, postal, ground, things of that nature, regional carriers? Any advice you would want to give them about what they would want to look at on a per order basis when it comes to executing a shipment?
Yeah, I think you need to certainly look at the overall cost and shipping. And I guess I'll dive right into a particular example is look at you have to look at where's your stuff going to, right? So we had the drop shippers, you have a little less control over the drop shippers, so they were shipping ground instead of home, and that was costing us that simple, it was getting there at the same time. So that simple change could save a couple of bucks or so per package. So you have to look at your demographic, look at your data, analyze the data as to where this product is going, and then you can kind of tailor your contract. We do a lot of smart posts on the FedEx side of things, and it comes with obviously very beneficial cost opportunities, but then there is some downside on guarantees, right? We really have to play games during the holiday because FedEx will give us best estimates as to when it's going to get there. So we combine their best estimates with what we've seen historically during the peak period, and then we say, okay, then we know when we've got to switch over from smart post to home. So can't stress enough that you really have to understand your business, and you have to go in with models as to where your customers. I guess there's probably some businesses that have a lot more express requirements from their customers than we do. So I think it's that. And then the only other one, we had a lot of benefit. We had, as I mentioned, we're part of an umbrella corporation, and we've got a sister operation. And one of the first collaborative contracts we ended up signing was with FedEx, and we combined our volume. So between the two of us, the volumes were tremendous, and we were able to really get a tremendous deal. So I understand not everybody has that opportunity, but if you do, certainly don't waste it. So I don't know if that answers the particular question exactly, but a couple of nuggets to keep in mind.
Yeah, it really points out one of the things that I think a lot of people get confused about when they hear multi-carrier shipping and rate shopping and things of that nature. I think the fact that you covered right there that inside a single carrier, you are strategically looking on a per package basis which way to send that, whether it's postal, last mile, home delivery, ground, or express. Doing that on each one is part and parcel. It's just the built-in technology of a multi-carrier shipping system, even if you're just using one carrier. Excellent. And Bill Quinn, let me go ahead and let me give you the last chance to answer that question, and we're going to run out of time here. It's about carrier service selection. Any thoughts that you might have about that carrier service selection process, and as it relates to anything, whether it's cost, customer satisfaction, anything?
I would definitely look at more than one. I don't think anyone should have just one carrier. And I think if you get any of the top carriers, there's going to be an opportunity to save costs there. If cost is the sole objective, to Bill's point, if you're looking at how you service and deliver to the customer and your sense about time and cost, which most of us are, the other thing I would add to the conversation is the customer doesn't feel the average, the customer feels the variation. So what we realized by looking at our shipment data, we ship very close to customers, so on average, we felt pretty good about ourselves, but when we started to look at the standard deviation, we felt different. And we realized why we were getting customer service calls, because those people weren't average customers. Those people were maybe a standard deviation or two away from average. And there was plenty of those people. So how do you manage that? Certainly different carriers, but then as Bill talked about carrier class, do you upgrade that shipment? And there's going to be patterns you recognize in the data. If you're shipping over 500 miles via ground, for instance, you might want to upgrade that service, or else that customer is never going to get it. So that's my final piece of advice: is don't just think about your average, think about the standard deviation, the variation in delivery time, and start picking apart why certain customers are waiting 7 days to get an order versus other ones are getting it at 3 days.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Bill Quinn, Senior VP of Digital Commerce at Hibbett Sports. Thank you for attending. Bill Carson, VP of Technology at Gilt Group as well. Thank you very much. This has been a very powerful hour. I like to remind everybody that this is recorded. You will get a copy of this if you'd like afterwards. If you did have questions that we didn't get to, we'll answer those via email. And thank you all for attending.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.